From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Good Sunday afternoon. Welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Kate Walsh. This coming week, families and friends will be gathering for Thanksgiving celebrations, a time of abundance of food and fun. But not everyone can celebrate that way. That's why the week before Thanksgiving is recognized as National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. And just to give you an idea of how serious a problem this really is, according to a report by the National Alliance to End Homelessness, there are over 500,000 people living on the streets every day in this country. In 2014, 7 million people in poor households were doubled up, living with family or friends. Massachusetts has made strides to get families out of hotels and into more permanent living situations. The 2015 status report on hunger in Massachusetts found that nearly 1 in 10 households struggles with food insecurity. So today on 22 News in Focus, we'll be discussing the situation with hunger and homelessness in our region with people who work trying to solve those problems. And those people joining me today are Debbie Rubenstein, director of Rachel's Table, Joe Manna, Community Development Director for the Springfield Rescue Mission, Bob Stover, Program Supervisor at Not Bread Alone, and Bill Miller, Executive Director at Friends of the Homeless. Thank you all very much for being here today. This is a very important topic, hunger and homelessness. Before we begin, I'd like to start really with each of you giving a description of your organization. So we'll start with you.
Well, Rachel's Table is a food rescue organization. Our mission is to alleviate hunger and to eliminate the waste of food in Western Mass. 6 days a week, our volunteers pick up leftover food from supermarkets, bakeries, restaurants, etc., and we deliver it to about 40 agencies that serve the hungry and homeless. We also rescue food during harvest season through our gleaning program. And I'm proud to say that we serve and work with each of the organizations that are represented here today.
That is great. That was going to be one of my questions, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And we'll go to you next.
The Springfield Rescue Mission has a long history in Springfield. It was founded in 1892. And the Springfield Rescue Mission, its goal, its mission statement is to meet the physical and spiritual needs of the hungry, the homeless, the addicted, and the poor by introducing them to Jesus Christ and by teaching them to apply the Word of God to every area of their life. We have 2 facilities. We have an emergency shelter at 148 Taylor Street, and then we have a larger headquarter facility at 10 Mill Street.
And that's a fairly new location, right?
That is. We just moved in about 1 year ago from another older location on Bliss Street, which is now underneath the casino or close to underneath the casino.
All right, go to you next.
Not Bread Alone is a free community meal that is based in Amherst, Massachusetts, in the First Congregational Church of Amherst. It's administered by the Center for Human Development, CHD, and we provide 3 free meals every week. On Wednesdays we serve a meal at 4, and on Saturdays and Sundays we serve at noon. Anyone is welcome. We get a wide variety of people there. Often it's people low income or homeless, or it can be people that would just like to eat with other people, and they come and sit and have a meal with their friends.
And where does your food come from? Is it all from donations?
We have a small food budget, and so we're buying food. We get, and that all comes from donations. And we get a lot from the Food Bank of Western Mass. Amherst citizens in the Amherst area donate a lot of food to us. And then we get food from local farms. We get food from the gardens at UMass or the farm at Hampshire College. Debbie's program has provided us with a great deal of fresh produce this fall, and we've made good use of it.
Excellent. And we'll end with you, Bill.
Good. So Friends of the Homeless is based in Springfield, and it's we serve adult men and women in shelter, but we also have a 24-hour resource center. Our primary goal is to help people move from homelessness into housing. We also operate over 100 units of individual housing to help people on their way. So our goal, although the numbers don't look good on the national front, we've, along with our partner agencies, have really, I think, made a lot of gains to, at the very least, to get people so they're no longer living on the streets of Springfield. There's still too many in shelter, but we're working very hard to move people from shelter back into housing. We saw people from 40 to 50 different cities and towns in the region. In this past year, over 1,000 different people accessed our shelter. So the need is great. We're the largest facility of our type outside of Greater Boston, really, and so it's a lot of folks. We appreciate the community support that we get. We certainly appreciate what Rachel's Table is doing, and our partner agencies in the community who work together and try to get things done.
So you said 40 to 50 different places these people are coming from. If they're homeless, how are they getting to these shelters? Are they walking? Are they taking some kind of bus from, faraway cities or towns?
Well, people who are homeless, if you will, are often very resourceful people. I mean, frankly, one of the things I like about the work that I do is that the people who we see who sort of, are very used to making do with very, very little, and it's admirable. And so how do they get around? I mean, there are buses, do they have a little bit of money or something? And they'll go to where help is available. And we do sort of work with other communities, and if we can help people move back into their home community, we're happy to do that. But there's not that many services available, so they're going to go where the help is.
And I'd like to kind of compare and contrast your two organizations. Do people go from Friends of the Homeless to the Springfield Rescue Mission back and forth depending where they can find a bed for the night, or are they completely different? I know yours is more religious in nature. Are they completely different, or do they kind of go back and forth?
Well, I could say that we definitely network with other agencies in town. We also work with Rachel's Table, and there are people in our emergency shelter, one of two facilities that we have, that go back and forth to Friends of the Homeless. But emergency service is very important. Those are the most desperate people, often alcohol and drug addicted. We shelter only men. So we get quite a cross-section of men with all kinds of different problems. But their behavior and their conduct is always very good. We're always surprised. We never have a call for the police, and we manage the whole thing day and night so that they are treated as well as possible.
And Friends of the Homeless has men and women, right?
Men and women, yeah. And I would say we look at the Rescue Mission, their main facility, as I would say, tell me if this is fair, but a faith-based halfway house in a sense. You're going there for rehabilitation. And so when that's a good fit, that's a great fit. We're happy to send folks over and have them receive those services there. We feel like we're just sort of a hub of a wheel, and we're just trying to match people with the best fit. So if that might be the situation, or it might be a more traditional halfway house treating substance abuse, as you said. There's a wide array. I mean, some people just want to go home, and so, that's what we'll work on.
At our emergency shelter, we often see men who are there. We direct them to the Springfield Rescue Mission's rehabilitation program. Men's New Life Rehabilitation Program is the formal name.
Oh, okay.
So some men go that way. We have found also that in the emergency shelter that 50% of the men that stay there over the course of a year do a job search. 80% of those get a job within 90 days. So you've got a population, many of them are willing to work and work hard, and that becomes their priority. We also have working poor. We have a couple of men that have no home, but they have a job.
Interesting.
So they're getting themselves back up and to stand tall.
Interesting. All right. Well, when we return, we're going to be talking about how you advocate for these people who are some of the most vulnerable in our communities. So you're watching 22 News in Focus, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about hunger and homelessness, especially in Western Massachusetts. And we want to talk about how each of these different organizations really advocates for these people who are vulnerable and can't speak for themselves often. So first, how do you go out into the community and make these relationships in order to get extra food and provide that to other organizations?
So we work on two fronts. One is to make relationships with food donors and get extra food. We have a great cadre of volunteers who actually do the picking up of the food, but some of the volunteers and some of our staff, me and my assistant director, we work with other food restaurants and bakeries and supermarkets, schools, hospitals, and really promote the fact that they can give us their extra food. We're really lucky because in Massachusetts, just last fall, there was a new law that if food places produce too much overage of food, they need to either pay to get it composted or to donate it. So that works to our benefit for sure. We also, Rachel's Table started 24 years ago as a project of the Jewish Women's Campaign of the Federation, and the Federation also is wonderful advocates to help us raise money to purchase more food. So the other piece that we do is we do spend time raising money to purchase food that we don't necessarily distribute a lot of. For example, protein food. We are doing a great distribution on Thanksgiving of many meals to about 8 of our agencies, turkeys plus all the fixings to go with it, and that's it started by one of our volunteers for her 70th birthday. She started the Dady Hochberg Thanksgiving Fund, and we continue that so we can purchase more food. And her friends, her families, and our community sort of gets behind that so we can have money also to increase the food donations that we give.
And you're located in, are you out of Longmeadow?
Springfield.
Springfield, okay.
Yeah.
And so do you work with Hampden County, or does it go all the way up through Hampshire? And
So most of our daily distributions are in Hampden County. I say most. And our daily pickups mostly are in Hampden County, but our gleaning program especially reaches more Western Hampshire and Berkshire and the Greenfield area, which I forgot.
Yeah, Franklin County
Franklin,
area
thank
too.
you.
That's excellent. And I'm sure you have to deal with getting rid of, perishable versus non-perishable, sorting everything, making sure that the expiration dates are right, that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. So we do take non-perishable food donated, and a lot of times people bring it to our office and we sort that, but we have really literally a little tiny office. So all our perishable food gets picked up by volunteers or rescued on the farm by volunteers, and mostly youth volunteers, and gets brought directly to our agency. So it's it's not even in and out, it's just out to out.
Wow. And how many volunteers do you have?
We have about 200 volunteers.
Wow.
It's a very well-oiled organization, which, it's a great service to the community. We don't serve individuals, we just serve agencies.
Excellent.
Right, so Rachel's been terrific. With our agency, for instance, we serve about 500 meals a day, and so, it's a godsend when, somebody shows up. We don't necessarily know what's coming in. I'm sure Joe deals with that too. You don't know what's coming, but there's enough to serve, and so we're thankful for the work that you guys are doing.
And I want to hear from you guys about how you try to represent the homeless and hungry in the community, but while we're on this topic, there's kind of a struggle right now in Amherst with a risk of one shelter possibly closing, right? So how does that affect your organization?
Well, I think that it'll affect the people that eat with us, many of them quite a bit. It's been a very valuable shelter. It's very well run, and it originated because a person died of the cold while living on the streets, and so it's been a struggle to set it up and get it going. I know the people who run it quite well. They often come eat with us, as do the people who stay in the shelter.
So why would it be at risk of closing? This seems like such a great thing for the community. What would be stopping them from continuing their efforts?
Well, I think it's a kind of service that requires a lot of funds, and I know that it's fundraising is always a struggle.
So is there a way that maybe you or the other shelters or organizations can help raise awareness and get that funding from the community? Is there something that is going to be done?
If I may, I think it's less funding from the community than, you know, we've continued to work with the state to adequately fund programs like ours, but also like the one in Amherst. So right now they're kind of hung up in a state funding issue and challenge, and so that's threatening. They're open only during the winter and only overnight, but and it's not terribly expensive in the scheme of things, but without that sort of central state funding, it's putting their general operations at risk, which the worst thing about that is that it's on the front page of the paper, and the people who are staying there see that, and they're seeing that, you know, this may close, and where do we go? And so we serve many of the same people that they see up there. People do get around to the communities that have shelters, as I mentioned earlier, and, you know, they're seeing that. People who are, you know, in services read the paper and know what's going on, so that's a tough part of it.
Well, that also ties into what my original question was, too. How do you try to get state lawmakers or legislators in Washington, D.C. to really push for this funding that you so desperately need?
Well, at the Springfield Rescue Mission, we don't participate in those programs. We're faith-based. And if somebody gives us a requirement, you can only pray before meals for 20 seconds. That's obviously not tenable for us. So we have relied from the beginning, from the outset of the ministry, to raise all of our money privately. In fact, 89% of all the donations that we get come from individuals, just individuals, and the rest, the balance of it comes from foundations, businesses, and churches.
You must find that you constantly have to be getting the word out, though, about funding that you need, right, to keep these people from...
We do. We use all media for that. We do a lot of direct mailing, 12 months a year, so they can open up that direct mail piece and they can hear about everything that's happening and what the needs are. We are also doing a big job with our network, our newsletters. We report on the men that are in the shelter and their stories of transformation, how they've transformed from a life on the streets, a drug or alcohol addicted or both. And we use email. We also use social networking, a lot of social networking, which of course is something that the younger people are especially attuned to. But the bulk of our donations come from individuals that are somewhat older, maybe older than mid-50s, and with higher levels of income. I can also say about food, we have a lot of food, and we never run out, and it has to do with our partners, but it also has to do with efforts that we've made. We have connections in just about every supermarket and restaurant, and anything that's in there that is approaching its code date is available to us. They call us, we come and we get it on our truck. So we try to keep our food costs low, but food availability and quality as high as possible. We feel that the people that we're serving deserve that.
And how does Not Bread Alone operate with trying to get the word out again and also funding?
Well, Not Bread Alone also receives no state or federal funds except in terms of the support that goes to the food bank, and we avail ourselves of the food bank. So we do fundraising is part of our mission, and we just work together with Craig's Doors quite closely to conduct Amherst's Shelter Sunday, which is very important to both programs and appears that has been, once again this year, a success. We're delighted and often have our congressmen or state representatives come, not because we get funding from the state or the federal government, but because they're fun to have with us, they're fun to cook with, and they kind of raise the profile of the program in the community by their visits.
Absolutely. Of course, the media is probably going to cover it, so then it raises awareness again and lets people know that the need is always there, right?
And it's a thrill for the people who come to eat. It's a thrill for the people who come to help us cook the meal.
Excellent. Bill, we're going to get to you, but first we're going to take a break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about hunger and homelessness in Western Massachusetts, and we were just talking about how each organization is funded and how sometimes there could be a lack of funding for some shelters. And Bill, we didn't get to you yet, so how is Friends of the Homeless funded, and what do you have to do to make sure that that money is always going to be there?
Well, I can't say that it's always going to be there, right? But you know, we do a combination of things. We definitely privately fundraise, and we so appreciate the community support that we get, as I'm sure we all do. But we also look to the state. The state does provide some funding for shelters statewide, and as our area legislators would know quickly, because I spend time with them talking about this, that you know, we need Western Massachusetts to be fairly funded. You mentioned the numbers early on that we have a very significant number of homeless individuals and families, and you know, we want to be funded just equitably based on the number of people that we see. So the Amherst situation, you know, you have a very small nonprofit trying to operate something that frankly is unpopular. There's some people that are very devoted to this kind of work, but in general, it's well down the list of things that, you know, funding is going to go to, and that is the way it is, but we still think it's important. So our area legislators are very supportive, but when they go to Boston, they're outnumbered, and so it's an uphill climb. I mentioned earlier that you know, I'm inspired by the people that we serve, so you know, we're willing to do that uphill climb for them. You know, they have to climb out of bed, nothing, you know, but the clothes on their back, oftentimes, maybe a bag, you know, and they keep on trucking, and so we'll organizationally keep on trucking as well, and you know, we'll make it work. We'll make do with what we have, but we also want some fairness, and we certainly want to see Amherst to be viable at least through the winter.
And I know there's never a good season, so to speak, for homelessness or hunger, but do you find that, of course, I'm sure winter would be the worst, especially in Massachusetts, do you find that any other time of the year is worse than others, or is there just always a need?
Oh, there's always a need, 12 months a year, and if you rely on private donations like we do, and individuals, we wind up in a situation where the needs are just as great in the summer, but the willingness to give is not. So you have to work extra hard to get them to support. And we're happy that we're able to do that, and we do it all the time. It is the #1 thing that we do. The rescue mission provides food, shelter, clothing, and rehabilitation services, and it's important for everyone to know that they're all free of charge. We don't charge for anything. And in the food area, we also reach out into the community. We don't just serve in our facilities. We have a ministry called Operation Sunshine, and we go out and distribute several days a week, distributing food, lunches, and hygiene items and anything else that we have that's in surplus to people on the street. That's men, women, and children. If they're out there and they're hanging around, we'll go there and try to get them something good to eat. We also have a public breakfast 6 days a week. Anybody can come in, men, women, and children. It isn't just the guys that are in the program or the guys that are in the emergency shelter. So it's a good opportunity for them to get a good jump on the day, to start the day with a good breakfast in their stomach, and they're able to function more. Many of the people are food insecure. One of the people that we deal with, it almost goes hand in glove. So those two things, public breakfast and Operation Sunshine, are outreaches, and we'll take anybody, whoever is there gets food.
And do you find do you find that people come at certain times of the year more than others, or is it just always the same amount of people?
No, it varies over the year, and of course now is a time when attendance starts to rise because it's getting cold and the weather's getting unpleasant. In years past, I found that May could be one of our most highly attended months because Craig's Doors has closed and people are scrambling to find living situations, improvised living situations for the summer and until Craig's Doors opens again.
Also, when you work with agencies that serve children, we find that school vacations and summer, there are a lot more people coming because they don't have their free school meals or subsidized school meals, and there's nothing in the cabinets to give the kids. But I actually, when I was telling people that I was coming here because it's National Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week, I was joking that in my little world, every week, 52 weeks a year, is Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week.
Yeah, I bet that's for all of you, right?
It is true for all of us. I think, you know, what's different about the winter is we get into life-threatening conditions, and so, you know, the work does, there is more of a spotlight on the work. The other thing is true is that the holidays, outside people are more focused on the work, and so we appreciate, again, the generosity of people during this time of year, but I think, as we all would say, we are there year-round. There's a handful of shelters in the region that are open winter only, and so when they're closed in the summer, then the year-round programs will have that challenge of still serving many, many, many people. I think, you know, people think that homeless people will go back out into the streets in the warmer weather, but if you think about it, I mean, maybe some of you guys like to camp, maybe you like to camp, Kate, but it's quite different to go on a weekend camping trip than it is to be living outdoors for any length of time. I mean, there are some people do it, but they're a hardy bunch, and the majority are looking for help in some way.
And it's pretty stressful to not have a private bathroom that you can go to, or to not have a bed or a closet. It's just it's hard to imagine for most of us to living like that. And in many ways, I admire them, and I wonder if I would be up to it if I were in those circumstances. So.
Really?
I'd like to just follow up something that Debbie was talking about with respect to children. During the school year, when we go out on Operation Sunshine, which is our mobile feeding van, giving lunches and hygiene items and other things, and we pray with them too. We pray with them because their lives are often very difficult, with difficult circumstances. But we notice that once the summer comes, we go from serving about 200 lunches to about 300, and that's all children that are hanging out in parks, by the bus station, and other locations where they wouldn't be during the school year because they'd be in the classroom.
And I know there are organizations, and the school systems are trying to boost their efforts in offering school lunches and breakfast even in the summertime at popular places where they might be, but you find it's not enough still.
21% of the children have insufficient food there, and so that's a big problem. And if we're not careful, that generation will move up, and they will have problems in school, problems with unemployment, and so forth, and the cycle begins again. So we need to help them as much as we can.
So Rachel's Table has a teen board, and the mission of the teen board is specifically to alleviate childhood hunger and to educate youth about hunger issues in our area. And one of their big programs they do is we partner with the Holyoke Public School Systems and provide backpacks to homeless and hungry children each Friday, so that during the weekend when they don't have access to school lunches, and during vacations when they don't have access to school lunches, they receive a string backpack filled with nutritious food to get them through. And it's been a very special experience for our teens who've seen that when we started this program, we gave out 67 backpacks each week, but they've worked really hard to raise money and collect food and continually have drives in their youth groups, in their schools, in their sports teams. And now we give out 200 backpacks each week to students, so I definitely think they've had an impact, and they're providing a lot of nutritious food to these kids who otherwise would go without during the weekend. They have little or no access to food.
That's amazing. It's great that you can offer so many backpacks, but it's sad at the same time that you need that many backpacks.
And I wish we could do it in every place, every town.
But we have to be reminded that the food insecurity is 21% of the child population in this area. It's very bad. And again, it's a harbinger of things that aren't very good later in life. You've got to keep them well nourished, growing, able to work in school, and then on their own when they get into the job market.
And I want to talk about the root of homelessness and hunger in our region, but first we need to take a break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. We've been talking a lot about organizations helping people who are homeless or hungry in Western Massachusetts, but we haven't talked about the root causes of homelessness and hunger. So I'd like to hear from you guys. You see it every day. Why are people homeless? What leads them to that point?
There's definitely a direct correlation when you look at the poverty rate. And our poverty rate here, well, for the state of Massachusetts, it's 11.5%. And that makes us in the top 13 states with the lowest rate of poverty. However, in different parts of the state, it's different. There are higher challenges. Here in Western Massachusetts, we're higher in the poverty rate, and it's especially high for children. 30% for children under 5, and 26% for children 5 to 17. So it starts with poverty, and then that causes problems with food and with where you live. You don't have the money, and you wind up living in unstable circumstances, going from place to place, eating when you can, where you can.
And Bill, what would you say is the reason for a high poverty rate out in Western Massachusetts and the Springfield area?
Well, I mean, you're looking at historical reasons, right? So, you know, so many of the jobs that were here when the different production factories were here, mills were functioning. I mean, this was a thriving valley at one time, and in some sectors it still is. But ultimately, it's what do we do next? So those jobs are gone. What do we do next? And it really is a jobs and job training circumstance. And I think we'll get to the other side of it. I think for us, the thing to focus on is the solutions rather than the problems. And so, you know, it does come down to housing, and we practice something called housing first. And so that is, you know, let's not resolve all your life circumstances before we move you into housing, because frankly, your life circumstances improve greatly once you get housing, and then you can start to resolve and have more opportunity to resolve those problems on your own. And you know, that's kind of a shift in itself. And we talked earlier about federal funding and so forth, and the federal government has gotten progressive in that area, and to where they're saying, you know, we have a limited amount of funds, and so we want you to focus on housing, because when there's so many studies that show if someone is housed versus not housed, their medical problems go up, all sorts of other problems get exacerbated. And so, you know, let's house them, and then whatever services we can add to that, let's add to that. But it does, you know, ultimately it is the economy. We have high housing costs, wages that are, you know, what they are. But we've got to deal with that. I mean, that is what it is.
Would you say that you also see a lot of people maybe with mental illness or veterans with who are homeless?
I certainly agree with Bill in that it's important to treat what I think are really symptoms of the problem, such as joblessness, hunger, and homelessness. But in what I see, there's usually something deeper than that is cause these people to become stymied in life. Often it can be related to alcoholism or addiction. It can be related to mental illness, which is a many variegated thing, and certainly not just one condition. But in most instances, these people have become disconnected from society and their families, and they just don't have friends or family who are functioning well in our society, who can help them work through what it would take. So I think that until we start to include these people into our societies, they will continue to have problems with holding jobs and finding housing and so forth.
Yeah, and do you think that there are some people who just don't want to improve their lives, as bad as that might sound? Are there some people who just are fine with being chronically homeless or hungry.
I think there are some people who would tell you that that's the case, but I don't believe it. I think they're in denial about their insecurity and discomfort in life, and but they also, it's probably a reflection of their alienation from our society.
I would maybe slightly disagree and say, although it is something we have to be careful how we would say, but there are certainly people who take pride in living on very little, and they're sort of amazing. At one time in this country, I think we did take pride in sort of ingenuity and understanding how to live, because most people were poor, frankly, and they understand how to get by on not very much, including sometimes people who are living in campsites or what have you, and but that is a small segment of the population, and I think we can't focus on them so much.
And I'm sure there's a difference between people being frugal and those who are going for a free meal because they're not looking for jobs and other things that would make their lives better, right?
I've been amazed, frankly, as a grown adult man, to see men who are willing to stand in line and wait for food. That they've been humbled by their lives. That always just touches me. But I'm sure so many of us in this country, we're all raised to work for, you take pride in earning your own way and all of that. If your life has come to where you're standing in line waiting for food, it's not the life you chose. It's not the life you chose, and so we want to make a difference for people. We're in the holiday season. We will serve Thanksgiving meals as you guys will as well, but the fact is, who's ever eating this year, I don't want them to be eating with us next year. They are welcome to come back. Our meals are open to the public, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, all year long. Come on in, but I'd rather you cook your own turkey next year. Thank you very much.
And do you guys find that there are a lot of repeat people year after year, day after day? I mean, how long have you seen someone stay homeless or stay coming to get food every single day?
We have noticed that most of the men that come in for our rehabilitation program are men that have been alcohol and drug addicted, leading terrible lives, homeless, and when they get into a situation where people care about them, are loving them, and they're being taught a better way of living, they actually transform. They go from being addicts to being people that are constructed, that do jobs, that work hard, that are eating, that reconcile with their families, because often when somebody's living that kind of out-of-control experience, they lose their connection with their family. So we see that, and we are very privileged to be able to offer a rehabilitation program that's faith-based, biblically based, and to give them the opportunity to change their lives forever. We have men, one man had a job with us, but he had spent 30 years on the streets, going from place to place to place, and suddenly he got a call in his mind to come and see us. He went through our program, and he has completely changed. He's married now, he has children, and he has a very good job in another part of the country.
Wow, very interesting.
Had not bred alone, I'd like to think that we have people that have been coming to our program for literally decades, and I'd like to think that's because it's such a pleasant place to have a meal, and the food is so good that even as your circumstances change or improve, you keep coming. That's where your social network is, and that social network, I think, is an important part of our program. And to go back to something that Bill said, I think once you get disconnected from society, it's really tough to reconnect and to find jobs, that will give you an opportunity to get ahead. So it's a tough thing.
But I do think that the community meals that are offered and supplied with food from our donors and so forth, that is a great thing to offer. So we help people move out, and yes, they may come back for meals in that kind of community if they're living alone or what have you. That's great. But again, just sort of in general, that the people that in years past, programs like ours would see the same people in shelter for long periods of time, many years. And sometimes there's a difficult case where they are there longer still now, but the notion is that, and not just the notion, but the data shows us over and over and over that there's tremendous savings in helping people get into, very modest, oftentimes single room housing, but with a little bit of support, they're just so much better off. So the people that we have known over the years who are living on the street, you might pass them if you work downtown or something, you would have passed them. They almost had become a fixture. Some cities are still like that. We've changed that approach, and so those people are taken in and housed, and it's in some ways a small change, but for that person,
Changes their life.
It's very big.
Excellent.
We have one member of our Rachel's Table teen board that a child who was homeless, and now she's working with the rest of the teen board members to advocate to make situations better and to help others get food. So
that is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, we're going to talk. We're going to take a quick break, but after we come back, we'll talk about what you guys are all doing, especially during the holiday season and the winter months when it seems like people are really struggling the most with the cold weather. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You've been watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. And with Thanksgiving just a few short days away and then Christmas the next month, it's an important time of year. People are thinking a lot about giving gifts, and they're trying to give back to the community as well. So how can you guys take advantage of these people watching at home and help your organization at the same time? What's going on this time of year for you guys?
Well, as mentioned before, we have a big Thanksgiving food distribution, and that's going to several of our agencies. Also, we just, a couple Sundays ago, we had our annual food raiser at the Big Y supermarket, which is a shopping contest. People compete to save the most money and highest percentage on the shopping bills, and all the money all the food that's purchased goes directly to our agencies, and that we know from the past really helps Providence Ministries and Open Pantry Services get through the holiday time, because it's really two truckfuls. They each get a truck full of stuff, and they're able to give more food out during this holiday season due to our work.
It is very impressive. I have experienced that firsthand. It's a great day.
It's fun.
And is there any way that people at home can, I'm sure you're open to anyone volunteering, right?
Absolutely. We have our cadre of volunteers are amazing, and we take new volunteers all the time. Our volunteers pick up 6 days a week from different food donors and deliver it to our agencies. We always need more and welcome more volunteers, and you can call us at Rachel's Table or find us on the web, rachelstablespringfield.org, and we would love to have more volunteers.
Great.
We've been working very hard, especially recently, in view of the Thanksgiving holiday coming up, raising money for the Thanksgiving meals and for the season that brackets that on either side, before and after. We had a great program on Thursday the 17th with F.L. Roberts, Causes in the Community program they have. They gave us a share of their receipts for the day. That was great. And also on that same night we had a Facebook promotion with Q 99.7 FM, again between 7 and 10, dealing with testimonies from men whose lives have been changed and who are living a much better life now thanks to the program and thanks to their willingness to work. And so on Thanksgiving Day itself, we will have a full day of activities. At 7 o'clock there'll be a Thanksgiving breakfast. At 11 we take food out to several hundred people that are housebound. They get their Thanksgiving dinner delivered by our volunteers.
Wow.
By the way, our volunteers last year gave 28,000 hours worth of service to us. We would never be able to operate without them. If you take 28,000 hours and multiply it by the minimum wage, it's more money than we would be able to reach out to get. So these are people that are doing it from the heart. We're very happy about that. On Thanksgiving, our dinner will be from 1 to 4. And we will continue these stepped up efforts because the weather is getting colder and we're approaching Christmas where we're going to do something very similar.
And I know you also have a huge facility with clothing for people who are homeless. Do you need jackets this time of year? Or are you good
Any
with that?
and all kinds of clothing. We've had some help from retailers with that, with clothing, especially winter clothing, jackets, scarves, mittens, that kind of thing, men, women, and children. All of that is offered free in our giveaway center. And they have to come in. They come in by appointment. And we take them in and we help them shop. And it's actually set up like a little retail store, except everything's free.
Right. And so how about Not Bread Alone? What's going on this time of year?
Not Bread Alone will have a marvelous Thanksgiving dinner on Thanksgiving Day at 1 p.m. My partner in this endeavor, Connie Kahn, brings decades of experience in cooking and is a smart and efficient woman. She will put out turkeys and hams and vegetarian options and many side dishes, including Nottingham yam pudding and cranberries braised in red wine.
Fancy.
And Julia Child's fluffy pumpkin pie. And some of the people who dine with us, who are sidewalk buskers, will give us some background music on their guitars. And that's an important part of Not Bread Alone. We want to think of ourselves as breaking down boundaries between who's a volunteer and who's a diner. And we'd like to create a family where everybody is contributing and everybody is benefiting. And we think that that really is what helps people feel like, well, I'm not receiving charity, but I'm part of a family that is having fun and enjoying life.
Excellent. And really quickly, Friends of the Homeless, what's going on with you guys?
Well, in case I miss anything, take a look at our website. You know, if you Google Friends of the Homeless in Springfield, you'll get it, but it's fohspringfield.org. But as was mentioned, I mean, our staff will do a beautiful job for Thanksgiving, put out a Thanksgiving meal. But as we touched on earlier, really, you know, every day is important. Every day matters, and so we want the community support throughout the year, and you know, we absolutely need to feed people breakfast on Thanksgiving Day, lunch, dinner, but every day after that too. So it's year-round work. Thank you for having us on and talking about this in this important week. We appreciate it.
Thank you all for being here and the services that you do for the community. It's not easy, I can imagine.
And also, I'd like to, as Bill just did, I'd like to encourage people to go to springfieldrescuemission.org, springfieldrescuemission.org, and they can find out everything that they would want to know about how we're raising money now, what we really need, and our schedule of events like the Thanksgiving.
And we will have all of your websites and information on our website as well. We'll have the last word for you after the break. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we've been discussing the issues of hunger and homelessness in our region with several organizations that are dedicated to helping people get the services they need. You can find links to these and other organizations that provide food, clothing, and shelter in our community. That's our program for today, and we want to thank our guests for joining us, and thanks to you at home for watching. If you missed any of it, you can watch it in full at any time on our website at wwlp.com. And from all of us here at 22 News, we wish you a wonderful Sunday and a happy Thanksgiving.